Oh, I did it again. I saw that Kevin did that same thing, and I told myself I wasn't going to do that. What's going on, everybody? Hello. Welcome to another episode of Ask StreamYard. So today, we are actually going to be talking about budgets. Now, we're going to have some fun here, and I'm going to tell you, this is going to be kind of like one of those, I'm going to try really hard not to go down rabbit holes today because it is easy to go down rabbit holes when you're talking budget stuff. So, hey, what's going on? If you don't know who I am, my name is Melanie Dyann Howe. Most people just call me Mel. I would love it if that's what you call me. So let me know who is here today. I want to say good morning to some people. I am going to bring on a guest actually for this show because you know what? It's just such a fun topic and it could go all over the place. So I'm going to have somebody help me out with this one today. So good morning, Andy. Hello. And Andy says, I hate it when I do that. Yeah, it happens sometimes. What that was it was the overlay that was still sitting there after our video ended. So hello, everybody. This is an episode of Ask StreamYard. And this is something that we are trying out a little bit new here. You may have seen that Kevin Colby did a couple of these episodes. They were fantastic. Essentially what we're doing is you have questions and we want to give you answers. And so if you're part of our StreamYard Facebook community, if you're not already, I don't know why you're not, go join us over there on Facebook, the StreamYard community. You can ask questions and you can use the hashtag Ask StreamYard, and you just might be featured in one of these shows. So we know you have questions and we want to be able to take your question and share that not only with the other StreamYard users or aspiring StreamYard users and educate people and help people. So that's what we've been doing. So we have a couple of episodes that we've done already, and we're going to continue to do these hopefully on the weekly basis here on Wednesdays. So make sure that you kind of subscribe to our channel, have that notification bell click so that you know when we do these shows. So again, use the hashtag Ask StreamYard, and we just might reach out to you and feature you in one of these shows. So we know you have questions. Now, today's episode, I will tell you, we're not specifically featuring anybody specific because we get these questions all the time from all kinds of people, and that's about budgeting. How do I develop a budget? What's a good budget? What's an ideal budget for live streaming? And so today we're going to kind of talk about some different scenarios for you guys so that we can help you make some decisions. So one thing I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to bring on my friend Christian. You guys know Christian, don't you? You guys know Christian. He's all over the place. He's Mr. StreamYard practically. Good morning, Christian. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing? This is going to be a fun topic, by the way.
I know. We were talking about this and I was just going to do the show. And literally earlier we were like, I mean, it's just going to be so beefy. And I thought, hey, why not bring Christian on for me? Plus, you and I have we have some similarities to our setup, but we also have some differences. And so I thought, why not have Christian help us out? And so he can help us, answer some questions as well. So got to say good morning to our friends here. Jim is in the house as well. Good morning, Jim. How's it going? Man, we got all kinds of people here today. So this is going to be awesome. I'm so excited to dive in, and we do have a lot to cover for sure. So now, before we go too far here, and Christian, you and I are really passionate about this. I'm going to move my mic just a hair. You and I are really passionate about this. And that is that sometimes people get a little hung up on all of the bells and whistles, the accessories, the camera, the microphones, and they really focus heavily on those aspects. And so I know that you and I are both like, hey, we want people to start with what they have, right? Because we see a lot of people jump out, they go spend tons of money and they haven't even begun their live streaming journey, or they don't even really have an audience just yet. And they feel like they got to go spend all this money and get all these things before they start. And you and I both feel very similarly that that is not the way to approach live streaming, right?
So absolutely. And that's the thing. Everybody, they go out, they spend all this money. And the thing is, it's always get started with what you have. For example, you've got a computer, it has a webcam built in. That's how I started. I mean, that was my first YouTube video. I used the webcam built into my laptop, and then I have slowly improved as my show has improved. So, it's like, for example, if you go drop thousands of dollars on equipment, but your proof of concept is not there yet, or you don't have the audience built yet, you don't need to be buying all of this stuff. Start with what you have. Start with the webcam. Make small, smart investments. Actually, that's the key thing I think we should highlight here, Mel.
Yes, 100%. And so that comes into the big question of, well, what's a smart investment? And I think that what we're going to explain to you guys is so many of these types of questions, the answer starts with, it depends. It really does depend, because a smart investment for you could be a different type of, smart investment for me. For example, if I have thousands of dollars that are just sitting around ready to invest in equipment, well, my definition of a smart investment might look different than somebody who has a budget of, let's say, $100 because they're brand new and they're just getting started. And so this is a subjective topic. In fact, I thought it was really funny before we even got started today. We've got the J vlog. He says, "What's the best budget for a live streaming setup?" Loaded question. And that is so true because it is a loaded question. And so we're going to talk about some different scenarios and some help. We're going to try to help you make some decisions so that you know what a smart investment is for you. Because I think what Christian and I both are so passionate about is we see people out there and we say, "Oh my gosh, I love their setup. I want my stream to look like that. What do you have?" And people start rattling off all these things. And not only is there money involved, there's also, knowledge and a skill set into utilizing it. And so there's that too. So there's a lot of things to consider for sure. And I think that's what we really want to make sure we hit home on today. So, so what do you say, Christian? You want to kind of get started here and we'll start talking about some of the different, levels and things to consider when it comes to developing your budget. And then hopefully we can help people make some informed decisions on where their next steps need to be. Because the first step is start with what you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Start with what you have. Even if it's nothing, you probably have one of these in your hand. I will tell you, there's a reason why these things cost $1,000 and 900 of it is the camera inside of it. So you actually have a pretty dang good setup right in your hand, most likely. And you can just start with a mobile phone. But if you have some things lying around, then start with that. Hopefully after today, maybe where you want to go next and you can make some of those informed decisions. So the first thing I thought we would talk about, Christian, are the different levels. So okay. I think that quickly people start to make assumptions that they need, again, they don't know about the middle, right? They think, if we start it with a phone and then the next step is all the fancy stuff, but that's actually not true. And so obviously the first place you can start with live video is with just your phone. And so you can just grab your phone and start live streaming, whether it be natively inside of the applications, or one of the things I absolutely love about StreamYard is it is mobile friendly and you can use all the fun features like bringing up, comments and putting banners on screen and all those things just with your mobile device. So you can actually create amazing streams with just your phone. But what about lighting, Christian? What about if somebody doesn't have any budget for lighting when it comes to it? What should they do with that? Because lighting is important.
Lighting is absolutely important. So if you're using, for example, if you're just starting out with the camera in your computer, or you have a Logitech C920 or a Brio or a StreamCam, for example, the easiest way to add more lighting is actually to position yourself with a window. So if you happen to have a window, it might be just changing your location for your live streams. So if you're somebody who you don't have the ability to go spend hundreds of dollars on lights, consider positioning yourself with a window, bring in some of that natural light, pay attention to those times when you're going to be streaming and when you're getting the most light. That's going to be the easiest way, I think, to light a scene.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things about natural light, I think that's, natural light actually is one of the best, nice wide casts. You don't want to be too harsh, but one of the slight things you have to think about when it comes to natural light is that it's variable, right? So some days, today where I am, I actually have my curtain open slightly. A lot of times I'll close it, but today the sun's not harsh, so I'm able to have the curtain open so I can look outside. But if the sun were coming in really harshly, I'd have to close those curtains because of the lighting setup I have. And so you do have to understand that sometimes your lighting can be variable, but you can move around and make those adjustments for sure. So yeah, so if you have nothing, no budget, you can get started today. You can get going and you can start there. Now I will say this, I got kind of an idea for people who are starting with their phone, or maybe they have a webcam already and they're just getting started. There's a kind of a hack, and you know me,
what is this?
I like a good hack, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So if you can go to a store and find one of these types of lamps. Now, this is a paper shade lamp. Sometimes they're called, Asian lamps, whatever. But the key is the paper shade. That creates diffused light because you can't just use a lamp. You don't want to use a lamp because that's going to put shadows on your face. But this right here, I bought this at a home improvement store for $12, right? And I'm using a bright LED bulb inside. And I used this for years. People are like, "What kind of lights do you have?" I'm like, "Do you really want to know?" Basically, I took two of these and I flanked them. I put them on my desk and I just put them there. So even for $20, $15 a piece, you can go set yourself up with a little bit of an upgrade, because maybe you want to stream somewhere and you're like, there's no light, there's no window, I'm in my basement or whatever. You can get really, really scrappy. And as I always say, scrappy doesn't have to be crappy. I used to use 2 of these lamps and nobody knew the difference. Nobody had any idea. So so Joey says, I made an office in our tiny closet, no windows or natural light. So I use a ring lamp and hanging lights. Exactly. There are actually, these paper shades sometimes are hanging lamps, right? You can use these. These are great. You can get these at like IKEA, but the key is to get a paper shade so that it creates a diffused light. So I wanted to make sure that, hey, you can also use a lamp, but he brings up a ring light, which is actually pretty great. Well, we're going to talk about ring lights here in just a moment. But so the first phase, as I mentioned, is just using what you have, going mobile, no budget, right? Mm-hmm. But let's say we've got a little bit of a budget. We want to start streaming. Now, one thing that is, I guess, important that we got to kind of cover here too is there's a difference between using your mobile streaming versus desktop streaming. And so we're going to mostly focus today on desktop streaming. So if you're streaming with a mobile phone, you need your phone, you need some good light. You probably need some audio, which means some wired headphones with a mic or something. Mm-hmm. You probably need a tripod so that you can have it set up and stabilize it. If you don't want to buy a tripod, you can stack this thing, prop this up, and stack it up on some books, right? So that's really the most basic level. But we're going to focus today and talk about some different budgets and some options that will support your desktop streaming. And so desktop streaming is like the next level. And that's where you're using hopefully the StreamYard software, or even just going live natively inside of Facebook or, YouTube or whatever. But there's definitely some accessories that we can help you go to the next level with when it comes to desktop streaming. So obviously, if you're going to use a computer, you need a camera, right? And you already mentioned this earlier, that a lot of computers, laptops, or all-in-one computers have a built-in webcam. But most of the time, that webcam is pretty bad. It's usually pretty bad quality. You can almost always spot one when somebody's using one. Now, newer computers, newer laptops are definitely making these better. So if you're buying a brand new one, you may actually find that you get yourself a pretty good quality built-in webcam. But you definitely want to look at buying a webcam. Now, there's multiple types of webcams that you can get out there, but obviously there's some popular ones out there that are around anywhere from 80, and I'm going to say 200 just because the webcam, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but let me just put it this way. You can use a webcam that plugs into your computer via USB, which is totally plug and play. You plug that bad boy in and you're ready to rock and roll. Or you can use what Christian and I are both using, which is a DSLR camera or a mirrorless camera. We're going to get to that in a moment. But I want to make sure that you understand. People sometimes say, well, I definitely want that same look. Well, these DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, one, come with a higher budget, but they also come with a little more configuring that you have to be able to do, and they're not plug and play. So if you need to move around, or you're going to stream in one room one day, or you're going to go on the road, that DSLR mirrorless camera may not be right for you. So there's a couple reasons here where a webcam may be a better fit. And one of those is ease of use. You just plug it in and it's like ready to go. So there's obviously different options for webcams. You used to use the Brio. I used to use the Brio, the Logitech Brio as well. That is at the $200 price point. I would never recommend anyone spend more than $200 on a webcam. I don't know about you, Christian, but you can get great webcams for around, $70, $80 up to $200. And there are new ones coming out on the market, new brands that we're hoping to explore and keep going with. But that webcam is important because it's going to give you HD quality at 720 or 1080p. The Brio goes up to 4K, but as far as I know, Facebook definitely isn't going to let anybody stream out at 4K. And I don't know that I would recommend anyone stream out at 4K, even if it was possible, just from a bandwidth standpoint. So what are your thoughts about webcams?
I will say this, for starters, it doesn't matter if you have the C920, the StreamCam, the Brio, by the way, they're good webcams. The things you need to do, though, you have to have good lighting for a webcam. Very small sensors in there. So if you don't have good lighting, here's what's going to happen. You're going to see a lot of blockiness in your webcam. And this applies to even to the ones on your laptop if you're just using that. So you want to make sure if you use either of those, and seriously, a C920 is $70. The StreamCam is $170. The Brio is also around $170, $180. So If you're just getting started, start with the C920. If that's a good upgrade over the webcam in your laptop. The other thing though, you want to make sure you do. So if you get any of the Logitech products, make sure you upgrade the firmware and make sure you also download the Logi Capture app and make some adjustments there. They're going to actually totally improve the quality of your live streams when you're using those webcams. So you don't actually have to go from a webcam all the way up to a mirrorless DSLR.
Totally true. And I'm showing right now, this is the Logitech 922. This is now my behind the scenes camera. And the reason I'm pointing this out is, one, I want you to see the camera, the quality. It's totally fine, right? And there's no light coming from this way. So it is a little dark, but I also have a ring light shining on me. But if you have anything you have, don't ever throw it away, because you might find that it has a different use down the road. And so this is what I used to have. This is the first webcam I ever bought. And I now use it as my behind the scenes camera. So you can people ask me all the time, what's your setup? What's going on? And also I use this and I like to just switch things up so that my audience can see some fun and maybe like my haircut. Sometimes people ask me about my haircut, but whatever. Now I'm going to say that this right here is the Brio. This is the Logitech Brio. And I haven't had this thing on in a long time. So it's totally needs configured. And as you pointed out earlier, that Logitech software is going to help you have you're going to be able to make some adjustments to the settings. Now, I will say this, the Brio is really sensitive to colors. And so if you notice, it's got an auto white balance that's set on it right now. Whenever I have all these colors that are introduced to it, sometimes the Brio gets a little wigged out. So I find that the Brio does really well in more stable environments. But as you can see, it's a pretty good camera. It's creating a very polished look for me. This is the $200 camera. The one I just showed you runs around $80 to $90 now when it's on sale. Logitech also came out with a streaming cam, which is essentially the only real major difference with it is that you can actually output 60 frames per second. This right here is only outputting 30 frames per second, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, Brio looks good. So you can, if you want to do a webcam, you can get that anywhere from, like I said, $80 on sale. There's other ones coming out. Be careful when you're buying one of these products because you're going to want to make sure that you do a little research. Because one of the things that I find is that even though it's cheap, it doesn't always work great. So you want to go and watch reviews, go to YouTube, actually literally watch people that are reviewing these cameras that know what they're talking about. And I will say take it with a grain of salt though, because somebody who's a professional photographer who's using really high-end cameras all the time is probably going to give both of these cameras a really crappy review. And that's just because their standards are different. And so look for somebody that you can trust that definitely, you have those things. Now, somebody's saying here, the Logitech 922 Pro Stream, get lots of comments on the quality. Fantastic. So again, you may not need to spend $200 on the Brio. I don't necessarily recommend it if you're thinking about upgrading later. And that's the other thing I wanted to point out that Christian and I talk about kind of a lot too. I don't know. I started to bring you up, but I don't know what you had in your hands. But here's the other thing. When you're buying equipment, think about the future as well. So for example, if you're like, you know what, right now I want to get started, I need to have a webcam, but I'm thinking within the next year, I'm going to upgrade to a fancy camera, a mirrorless camera. Well, then don't go spend $200 on a webcam if you're just going to replace it later anyway. Go ahead and get an inexpensive one. Or start with your phone. You can actually use your mobile phone as a webcam. And we have a couple of videos on our YouTube channel here at StreamYard about how to use your mobile phone as a webcam. So if you're, those are definitely in our playlist. So check those out. But that's the point I want to make here is if you already know you're going to spend more money later, then the money you spend today needs to support what's happening later. So don't buy a camera just to replace it, I guess is my point. So don't spend $200 when you're going to spend more money later.
The other thing I wanted to highlight actually real quick, so you briefly alluded to this, it's the fact that if you are going to use your smartphone, by the way, I'm going to quickly set up my phone, and actually I'm going to show you, because I'm using a Sony mirrorless camera, and I want to show you how this actually looks compared to that. But a couple of things. So I want to talk about what Mel said about being smart with your purchases. So for example, if I'm going to go and I'm going to buy, a holder for my phone, if I'm going to use if I decide I'm going to use my smartphone as my webcam. Okay. So here's the thing. You don't just need a smartphone. You also need a couple of things. So the other thing I buy one of these. This is a mount for my smartphone. Now you can go and you'll get these. For example, if you buy a ring light, they usually come with it. If you buy them separately, you'll get like one of those little spring-loaded ones. For example, I don't use any of those. I make the investment in this holder for my phone. Why is that? Because I have, $1,000 phone here. And if I put it on one of those spring-loaded clips, they work, but they don't really hold the thing very well. And so here's what I look at it as. I say, okay, I'm going to use this. Chances are it's going to break after moving in and out for quite a few times. Why don't I spend, this was like $25, I think. This is the shoulder pod. So this is what I use. And I've had this for years and it works fantastic. It actually will go on a tripod as well. So this is what I use, for example, to hold my smartphone. And then the other investment I made when I said, hey, I'm going to use my smartphone is I want to make sure I'm putting it the right height. So I also keep a couple of these. This is a little Manfrotto tripod that I have that, is just the height of my laptop. So then that way I can put the phone on that tripod and have it right there in front of me. Yep.
And see, I went scrappier than you. You know what this is? This came off of a selfie stick. This thing right here.
Yeah.
This came off a selfie stick, but it's the same concept. I actually have multiple of these things, but what Christian's describing is if you're going to go mobile, you want to use your mobile phone, you are going to want to make a small investment because you want it to be stable. You don't want to just be holding your phone all the time because one, your shoulder's going to hurt, right? It's just I honestly have done it and your arm gets tired and you will create a bit of a shaky experience for your viewers. So you want to invest in, these types of things. You can get tripods and this thing, you can get these things for anywhere from literally $15 to upwards of more money. So now I see we have a question, a couple thoughts. I wanted to get back to this. One, somebody's reminding us that Logitech capture software is not compatible with M1 Macs. So if you have an M1 Mac, just be aware of that. And then somebody else, Patrick, actually makes a great point, and he is totally right. You're not doing anything wrong, Patrick. That Logitech capture software does tend to drain the computer, which brings me to another interesting comment, because somebody was talking about that they're still using webcams. Here we go. They're still using webcams. New computer first, then upgrade the camera. I think this is such a key component and such a key element because one of the things is you can spend a ton of money on all this fancy stuff, but if you don't have a computer that supports it, you're actually going to create more problems for yourself. So this is actually a really smart approach that basically she's holding her budget. She's going to get a computer, then she's going to upgrade her camera. But for now, she's using webcams, and I guarantee she's doing just fine. So great points there for sure. So some people have a couple questions about what microphones we're using, and we'll cover those here in a second.
I knew we were getting that question, but we always get that question.
Yeah, we do. So why don't you give us the rundown really quick on your setup, and then I'll give the rundown on my setup, and then we'll kind of move into some other additional investments that people might want to be thinking about making, and we'll talk about some budgets there.
Okay, yeah, sure. And actually what I want to do real quick is, let me pull this up actually. I'm going to switch my camera, but let me get this adjusted real quick for you. And I want to show you guys this because, so you see I'm on the Logitech C920, or sorry, Logitech. I'm on the Sony mirrorless DSLR right now. This is this camera. So that's the same camera that Mel's using. For this though, to get this nice like blurred background, for example, I bought the camera and then I bought an additional lens. So that's what I'm using for my my camera. For my microphone, I'm using a Shure SM7B, and that's running into a mixer. It's running into a Rodecaster Pro. But I also like to keep this sort of stuff around as well. This is my like little travel like product. This is a Mix Pre 3. It's also a mixer. I can plug a phone into this. I can plug in 3 microphones, for example, and it runs off battery. It's super portable. So that's typically my setup there. But what I want to do real quick is I want to switch my camera. And okay. I'm going to switch my camera over to to my phone, actually, so you can see this. So let me see.
And while you are doing that,
yeah. So here's my phone.
Yes.
So
perfect.
It's a side view, granted. It's not exactly the same exact view from the front, but I'm using the selfie camera I'm using the front-facing camera on my phone, and I'm running it through this is Reincubate Camo. I'm running it through Reincubate Camo. So there's not actually much of a difference in terms of the quality. So if for example, I don't want to spend an extra $1,000 on a mirrorless DSLR, I could use my phone with, I think it's $80 lifetime. So I'm not actually having to make, I'm not spending $1,000 and another $1,000 on a phone. and then all the other stuff that goes with that. So it's being smart with what I'm using there. Does that you can see that right, Mel?
Yeah, totally. And I think if you were to move the phone more directly in front of you, where your ring light would be able, you would actually find that his lighting will improve even more. So and if you're on a phone, he would maybe adjust his lighting, right? He might bump his ring light up. Yep. By the way, someone's complimenting your brick wall.
My faux brick wall, huh?
Yes. Okay, a couple things really quick before we transition. Yeah. A few of you have asked for, yes, perfect. Thank you, Jennifer, for that link. And we have a video where we talk about that as well. But a couple people have asked if we have links to our equipment or if we have a store. StreamYard has a store. We don't necessarily have anything like that, but definitely we can try to go back into the description after the fact, and we can share some of the names of these products in the description for sure. So come back and check that out. But we aren't going to be sharing links to products today. But we've got some great questions. I also I just wanted to, I guess, point this out really fast. Sure. Just so everybody knows, Facebook is wigging out right now when it comes to groups. This is actually not a StreamYard issue. This is just a Facebook issue. They have pushed a lot of new updates out that I'm really excited about for groups. They're starting to make changes, and anytime any software is updated, there's the possibility of introducing breaks in API and code as well as bugs. So right now there are definitely some issues. So there's nothing you can do to fix this right now, just other than be patient, unfortunately. So a great point there, Jessica, but we're going to get back.
Thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate bringing that up because we get lots of questions on it, and it's, Facebook changes something, it then potentially breaks across the board for everyone, and then we have to wait for Facebook to fix something. So
yeah. Joey, real quick, right now there is no mobile app for StreamYard, but it works if you just go to the browser and you literally go to StreamYard. You can use every feature available to you other than screen share. So you can still actually do great broadcast mobile right now. So yeah, okay, let's, we have some questions. So I'll tell you what. Did you finish your setup? I'm sorry. Did you finish telling us what your full? You didn't talk about your mic. Did you tell us your mic?
Sure. I've got a Shure SM7B, but I also I think I'll tell you what I use, but then I'll also kind of tell you why I use it like this. Perfect. So I use the Shure SM7B. You guys see this red thing that's here on the mic. This is a cloud lifter. You do not necessarily need this. You don't need it with every mic you buy. It depends on the type of microphone that you buy. So for example, this microphone, it requires a lot of power. And so I have to have this to boost the gain basically for that mic. If I took it off, it would sound really, really, really quiet. What would happen is I'd turn the volume way up on my mixer, for example, and it would not sound good because it would start to clip when it gets too high. It would be peaking basically. And so that's what that is for. It allows me to adjust to give the mic more power than it needs. And then, as I mentioned, I go through a mixer. And, the one thing I think I want to drive home, though, Mel, is the fact that when you're doing your live stream setup, you want to make sure you're thinking about how you're going to be working.
Yes.
So if you're going to be somebody that, you mentioned this earlier, Mel, like if I bought a mirrorless DSLR, I don't just need the camera and the lens. I need a tripod. Hey, that's an expensive camera. I want to put it on a good tripod, so I'm going to be moving around. That may not be the best thing to be using. That's where I might say, well, hey, let me get a webcam, or you know what? Let me not even do that. Let me use my smartphone and a piece of software and a cable. And then I just need a small tripod to put that phone on. So you kind of have to think about it like that. And then even talking about mixers, by the way, so you got the Rodecaster Pro, you got the Zoom PodTrack P8. I've got this from Sound Design. This is the Mix Pre 3. This is also a mixer. It's so much smaller than my Rodecaster Pro. So I have these depending on what type of setup I'm going to be in. So you do have to keep that in mind.
Yeah. And a lot of people are pointing out, when you introduce an XLR type of microphone, which is the Shure that Christian's using, you do introduce other accessories that you're probably going to need. You're going to need the interface as little and as simple as this, the Scarlett. You have to have a way to interface that XLR microphone into your computer. And so this is, no less than, it's $100, $125. You got to buy the cable. You got to have the right kind of mount for the microphone. So anytime you're adding, while Christian's audio sounds amazing, right? My audio doesn't sound bad, right? And I'm using a USB microphone, and I'll get to my setup here in just a second. But anytime you're adding a DSLR camera, mirrorless camera, or an XLR microphone, you're adding also the necessity for additional accessories. Not only does that come with additional costs, it also comes with additional complexities and more stuff to move around. So great point, Christian. And that's something else to think about too, is that think about your environment. Think about your office setup. Are you going to be streaming at your kitchen table because that's the best place for you to do it? Or are you going to be streaming in your kitchen because you're a chef and that's what your show's about? Well, if that's the case, you're going to have to be setting up and tearing down all the time. And these other types of fancier, right, different things may not be a good fit for you because you're constantly having to hook it up, unhook it, move it around. Whereas a webcam or even a phone is like, boom, you're ready to go. And so that's something you have to think about too, is what is your setup in general with your actual like live environment? And are you on the go all the time? Or somebody like me, I'm able to I have everything here. You saw the behind the scenes shot a second ago. This is my office and this is my setup, and it is in my downstairs living room, and my daughter's computer's over there, and there's a futon here and a TV here, and it's just part of it. I've dedicated the space to it. So I'm able to add some of these other things. But if I were moving around all the time, there is no way that I would be using an XLR mic and the DSLR camera. So it's a great point that you brought up. I'm really glad that you brought that up.
So I have a question for you. So outside of streaming, so you're streaming primarily, like you don't go outside of your studio, right?
Most of the time I am streaming right here. Right. Now there are times when I stream outside, but I don't bring this stuff with me. In fact, I've traveled and I honestly unhook one of my webcams and I take it with me with a tripod and my laptop. And then I'll bring one of my, I won't unhook this microphone. I have another USB microphone that's really small and it has a stand and I take it with me. In fact, it's right here. It's the Yeti Nano. I have the Yeti Nano. So it's really easy. It's already got a stand. It folds up nicely. It's nice and small. And so I will sometimes take that with me, but I don't always. But for the most part, I'm streaming here. And I also use this setup, meaning the camera, the microphone, to create other videos as well. And so again, there's a reason for me. If I were just making one live video a month, I wouldn't spend all this money on the equipment. And so again, you have to decide what's smart for you, that, all of you guys for sure. So great question. So somebody's asking me, oops, this is such a good question. So good eye, Valerie. Valerie spotted in my behind the scenes shot. Let me just grab it.
Can we see this? Yeah,
Yeah. And right here is a Rodecaster. This is the Rodecaster podcast pod mic.
Yeah.
Okay. You know why I haven't started? Because I need to get the cloud lifter for it. This microphone has to be like practically in my mouth for it to be loud enough. That's one of the things that comes with a lot of XLR microphones, is sometimes they need additional gain or power and it's just too quiet for me. And so I have it. I've invested in it. I do have a podcast as well. So I definitely wanted to kind of consider upgrading my audio. I have this microphone in front of me is the Elgato Wave 3. It comes with software that I'm super, super stoked about. But ironically, Rode is coming out with similar software too. But the reason I'm not using this is because that level of complexity, I just haven't mastered it just yet. So going back to, I'm creating streams and this is my next step, but I'm taking my time with it because I don't want to just let it distract continuing to produce shows. And so that's a key component I think that you have to think about too is, Christian, I always give you a hard time because you're using an A10 Mini, which is a piece of hardware. We're not going to dive deep into that today, but you're not really utilizing all the features of the A10 Mini either. And you're like, I just haven't had time to figure it out.
Right. Yeah. And by the way, I do want to, speaking of mics, so in terms of microphones, I want to also highlight Jem's comment here, by the way. If you're just getting started, and this is a mic that we always all recommend, you're just getting started, you want to, if you get a USB mic, plugs directly into your computer. You can't really upgrade that to put it into, for example, an interface or things like that, like the Focusrite that Mel shared and so forth. So this mic, the thing we really like about it, $70. It has USB, so you can start with it and you can upgrade to XLR. $70. It's a little handheld mic. It has a stand. Don't forget, by the way, I think you could actually repurpose that stand for other things if you ever want to do that. But $70. And so you're not going to actually have to upgrade. You're going to upgrade your audio, but you're not going to have to upgrade your mic so quickly. So
Yes.
something to definitely keep in mind.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, actually. So just real quick, I'll give everybody what my setup is real fast, and then we'll just we're going to keep moving. So, because we definitely need to cover mirrorless cameras, DLS, and honestly, we need to talk about the difference between some of these mics. But so what I'm using is, my camera is the same as Christian. So I'm using a Sony a6100. I am also using that upgraded lens. Now, what does that mean? So you can go buy one of these cameras, a Canon M50 Mark II, a Sony A5100, A6100, whatever, right? You can buy any of these cameras, and you're going to have an option to buy it with what's called a kit lens, which is essentially just the default lens that it comes with. It's a very cost-effective way to get started with a camera. I will tell you that I bought this camera with the kit lens, and it was great, but I really wanted this blurred background. I also wanted to be able to use this camera in a low light setting, so I did end up buying the Sigma lens that you're seeing right here. So when you're thinking about buying cameras, you also want to think about the lens, because I would have saved money if I would have just bought the camera body by itself and the lens instead of buying the kit lens. And then now I have two lenses, and the other lens, I'm like never going to use it unless I use this for photography, which I could. But so I'm using the Sony a6100 plus that Sigma lens that lets me take that aperture way down, that f-stop way down, which creates that blurred background. I'm using a newer 18-inch ring light. Now, when it comes to lights, bigger is better when it comes to ring lights. If you're on a budget, you're better off not buying a ring light until you can afford a large cast ring light, because when you buy one of those little ones, it's no different than you just putting a lamp in front of your face. I'd rather you use one of the paper shade lamps, to be honest with you. My audio, I am using the Elgato Wave 3 microphone. It is hooked up to a scissor mount so that I can have it hooked up to my desk. I can move it around. I can move it out of the way when I want to. It does come with a stand, but the stand's a little low, so I like having things. So I can use my hands a lot, and if it was mounted and sitting on my desk, I'd probably knock it over. But the Elgato Wave 3, I'm also using a shock mount that's on that too. So right here, this is the shock mount, and that is going to help my audio sound even better. And then my headphones. Headphones are important too. These are popular. These are just the clear headphones. We can post a link in our group. We've posted that before. But, and then of course I use StreamYard for my software, but I'm also using OBS. So some of you may be wondering, how is she switching her cameras? Well, Christian could do that. He's doing that because he uses an A10 Mini, so he can switch his camera destination. I'm using OBS, which is free software. Again, you have to learn how to use it. It has complexities. You're introducing another variable into your stream, but I'm able to switch my cameras very quickly because I'm using OBS, and I have both of those cameras set up with it. So there you have it. This is a USB microphone. A USB microphone, in comparison to an XLR, like Christian said, is like the webcam. It's plug and play. You buy it, you take it out of the box, you plug it into your computer, and voila, you have a microphone. Now, I do want to talk about these USB microphones, because there are some USB microphones that get a really bad rap. One of which is the Blue Yeti microphone, which I have in my hand, right? I used this thing forever, and quite frankly, I thought it sounded great. I got compliments all the time. I used it to start my podcast. The first 40 some episodes are recorded with this microphone right here. People give this microphone a bad rap, but honestly, I think that 90% of the time, it's because the user is not using it correctly. And so when you're using USB microphones, you want to make sure you know how to use it. So this microphone has different polar patterns. So if you already have one of these and you're like, I hate my Yeti, make sure you're using it correctly, because this is a pretty dang good microphone. It really is a great microphone. The disadvantage to it is its size. As you can see, it's very large. It's pretty heavy. It's a great microphone though. So if you have one of these, back to that concept of use what you have now, upgrade later, you don't need to get another USB microphone. I have different USB microphones because this is literally what I geek out on, and I like to try new things, but that's probably not you. So if you already have this, don't get a new microphone until you're gonna basically get a permanent microphone. What you wanna make sure you're doing is you're utilizing it correctly. You wanna talk into the microphone correctly. So this microphone, the recording pattern is right here in the front. But if I were talking over here, it's not gonna sound very good. Or if I were way back here, it's not going to sound very good. You guys are like, that doesn't sound very great, right? So you want to make sure you utilize the microphones correctly. So if you have a mic already, make sure you're focused on the technique. And you may just find that the microphone you have is just right and perfect for you.
Definitely, yeah. And in terms of that microphone, by the way, the other thing also I think that's important to mention. So if you happen to have the Blue Yeti, we're not saying go get another mic. We're saying use what you have. So one thing to remember on that, look at the different patterns, different voice patterns on the microphone. But then the other thing, Mel, you mentioned this earlier, like you have like a mount for your microphone. I have the same thing. I've got my mic. It's not on my desk. It's not right in front of me. It's on an arm that I can move in and out of the shot and so forth. So, you know, if you happen to get a Yeti, for example, it picks up just about every little thing that you do if it's right there, you know. But the thing is, if you get a mount, you can mount that to that and it'll get off your desk. So if you're not, you know, if you're typing, it won't pick up some of the typing that you're doing and things like that. So just kind of keep that in mind in terms of like placing your mics.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we have all kinds of people mentioning the Yeti, and something that is really key, and I see this all the time, is, again, it goes back to know where you're supposed to speak into the microphone.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people with lots of microphones.
What's the right way?
Talk into the top. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they talk into the top of the microphone. You don't want to talk into the top. The recording patterns are here, and also you need to make sure you know what your recording pattern you're using. So these are different settings. And so again, just go to YouTube and say, how do I use the Blue Yeti? And watch one of those videos and you're going to be golden. Promise. Yeah. I promise. So, you know, you want to make sure you're talking to the right part of the microphone. That's a really key point there. So thanks for making that point. Okay. Oh my God. I said we weren't going to go down rabbit holes and we went down rabbit holes.
By the way, I do have one question before we move on to the next area. And let me actually find it real quick. So we had somebody asking, let me see. They're asking about AirPods actually.
Oh yeah. That's a great question.
Find this one. If you see it, let me know. Please pull that one up. I turned my head and poof, it was gone. Let's see. So, Gemini,
While
by
you're
the way,
looking for that, this is live. Yeah, we're live.
Yep, definitely live. Gemini, by the way, yeah, in terms of links for equipment, do me a favor. If you have questions, you all can always email us marketing@streamyard.com as well. And we can get you links to everything we're talking about. We can even talk more about your setup as well. So feel free to reach out to us there or also in the Facebook group. Okay, let me see if I can find this question real quick, Mel.
Yep.
Let's see. Andrew asked, what webcam did I say? I said the C920, the StreamCam, which the StreamCam can shoot in landscape and it can flip to do portrait. And there's also the Brio. The Brio has a 4K option. Most platforms don't stream in 4K, so you're paying for a future technology that you can't always use unless you're maybe recording for pre-recorded video. And then you can also use like re-incubate camo or Irian cam for using your smartphone as a webcam. Okay, what else we got here? Let's see.
Yeah, so essentially what we're going to do is I want to make sure that we talk about cameras, like not cameras, but the DSLR and the mirrorless cameras. And so we both mentioned that we're using a Sony a6100. Let me just explain what is required for you to use one of these types of cameras. You cannot just plug these cameras in. So if you have a DSLR sitting around or a mirrorless camera, you may be able to utilize that as your webcam. But as Christian, I think, touched on this before, one of the things that you're going to need at a minimum is a cable that's compatible to coming out of your camera that is also going to eventually connect to your computer. And there's two ways you can do this. You need a capture method. You're either going to need a piece of hardware like the Cam Link, which is what I use in mine. Okay. So you're using the A10 Mini essentially does the same thing, right? It's basically a capture card.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to need a piece of hardware, okay? Or you could work around it by a lot of these cameras have come out with applications that you need to install in your computer. For example, the Canons, the M50s are very popular cameras that people use for vlogging and whatnot. You can use that to stream, but you are going to need to download the EOS webcam utility app by Canon. Now, Sony has one as well. I think Panasonic and Nikon now have them as well. Once you install these on your computer, they are basically background applications. You're literally going to install it and be like, now what do I do? Well, you actually don't have to do anything after that. You just, all of a sudden, when you go to select your webcam in Zoom, in StreamYard, you know, on Google Meets or whatever you're using, when you go to select your webcam, you're going to notice that that utility app is one of your options, and you're going to select that. And then now your camera is going to be recognized as a webcam. So the downside to using that software is, at least right now, some of them are still in beta, but most of them are not in beta anymore. They do diminish the resolution a little bit. And hopefully that changes. Hopefully they make some adjustments to that. But as of right now, if you're using those webcam utility apps, your resolution may not be quite what you want, which the whole point of using the fancier camera would be so that you get that great quality in your stream. So again, there are some things you have to invest in with those. So there's some additional accessories you need to consider when you're using one of those. So
So I want to add a couple of quick points here, by the way, too. So if you are going to use, like, say you happen to have a DSLR camera lying around, say it's a Canon, go to their website and look up the camera on their page. They're going to have on the webcam utility page a list of the cameras that are supported. And you're going to have two types of cameras, basically. One is going to be that's going to give you clean HDMI. What that means is that, like, right now, there's no, like, my camera shows my shutter speed and my ISO, and that's not coming through in my broadcast. But if your camera does not support clean HDMI, all that stuff is going to show on screen, which means it basically would, I mean, it would be distracting, I think, to your viewers. So, that may not be the right option to go with. The other thing I also want to touch on real quick. So you mentioned, if you're going to plug a mirrorless DSLR into a computer, you typically need a capture card. The Elgato has those. That's about $150, by the way. So if you're going to buy the camera, you're spending $1,000 on the camera, $150 on a capture card, and then, maybe a different lens or a tripod and so forth. If you're just getting started, go the smart route. Use your smartphone, use a webcam, for example. And then once you've gotten your show going and off the ground and generating revenue, then you can get into maybe using the mirrorless DSLR.
Yes. And I do know that with those utility apps, with that clean HDMI comment, I want to touch on that because I have a Canon M50, and when I use the utility app, I don't run into the clean HDMI issue. But if I try to use the Cam Link, which again is going to give me that better resolution, it does pull in those display settings. And so there are ways around it, but you kind of have to work on it. Dimebag Darren makes a great point too. You could use a third-party application and crop in, crop out of that stuff. But again, as our point is you're adding additional things. So
and you're complicating your live stream.
Yes. Which, if you complicate it, you're going to avoid it, and you're not going to go live regularly. And consistency and being regular is how you get success and get results. So,
Definitely.
Let's just do a quick recap, and we'll go through some of this stuff. And I know you have a hard stop at 11, and so I want to make sure we're very. Oh, this is actually I'm sorry, but Joe makes a great point. This is a newer camera that's actually pretty awesome. I know I have a few friends that are using this camera as well. So that's Sony ZV-1. Again, go to YouTube, my friends. If you are looking at equipment, always go to YouTube, do some research. You're going to find a lot of experts out there that are going to give you the rundowns. Just do your research before you make these investments. But just let's do a quick little rapid fire recap. And if we missed anything, we'll catch it here. But basically, if you have no budget at all, right, then we want you to use your mobile phone as a webcam, or that camera maybe that's built into your computer, of course. But I will tell you, your mobile phone is a great webcam. And so we have some videos on our YouTube channel that you can check out that teach you and tell you how you can utilize that phone as a webcam plugged into your computer. You're going to want to use headphones. We didn't talk about this very much, but anytime you're introducing, you're using just a basic phone or even your laptop that has a built-in webcam, try to make sure you use some decent audio. And honestly, you probably already have some decent audio, and that's a set of headphones that has a microphone in it. Now, I want to make a quick point here about wireless headphones because a lot of people are like, oh, I'll use wireless and then I can kind of move around. I don't have to worry about it. I will say this. Most of those wireless headphones, including the AirPods, do not have great audio quality. Nope. I wish they did because it would be amazing. But unfortunately, they tend to bring in a lot of background noise. Honestly, those wired headphones that have the little microphone right here are probably going to be a better bet. Would you agree?
I definitely would, actually. And I did find that question from Mestra here about AirPods. Is it good to use in StreamYard live videos? I would say this. I have a pair of AirPods. I don't use them. I don't use them. The only thing I use them for is pretty much like working out or, like activities where when I need to be wireless, I tend to stick to wired headphones. So I'm using, these are Sennheiser wired headphones, in-ear monitors. These go in my ears. They basically block out noise. They are on a 6-foot extension cable, for example, so that I can actually move around with this sort of thing. But I don't recommend using wireless. The other thing, you can buy in-ear monitors that are wireless. The other thing about these kinds of things, so for example, if you're using a wireless headphone, the battery is usually pretty good on those. However, what will also happen, or what can happen, is they can disconnect. If you've ever paired them with any other device, they can actually disconnect and try to connect to your other device. And now you're talking and you're like, well, what happened to my audio? And then sometimes what can end up happening is you have to do a whole computer restart or something. So I try to steer away from using a wireless solution. for headphones. And in terms of the AirPods, I'll tell you this. If you have a pair of AirPods and you want to test them out, what I would do is I would start a stream, like do a private stream to like an unlisted YouTube channel, for example, record your stream, and then don't listen to them on your like AirPods. Go and listen to like watch your video or have someone else watch your video. And you're gonna tell a difference between what you're hearing and what your audience is hearing. It's gonna sound very good to you, but to them, it's gonna sound very different from what you're hearing. And that's kind of by design. So, you have to kind of just keep that stuff in mind.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, is that doing some testing. So one of the things I always recommend to people is go create a private Facebook group with just you in it and just use it to play around with stuff, try audio, try different things, and then rewatch them or watch it on your phone while you're doing the test, and you will literally get to hear it. And again, we're talking about the no budget here. So you may already have a set of wireless headphones. If you don't have a set of headphones sitting around that are wired with that microphone right there, then maybe that's what you start with, right? Maybe that is what you start with. Again, this is all about using what you have, and with no budget, then that's what you're going to need to use. Audio is important. Somebody asked the question about how important is audio. Audio is incredibly important, in my opinion, because I think that a lot of people are multitasking and they're going to be listening to your broadcast. They may not be watching you. And so if your audio is really, really bad, it can be really disruptive and people are just going to jump off. So I do think that's really important. So, okay, cool. Well, let's keep going. I talked about this, the light. You want to use natural light, or go find some cheap paper shade lamps. As I showed you guys earlier, you can get those in lots of different stores. The key is paper shade, and then using those bright LED bulbs, probably those daylight bulbs that are like practically surgical grade. They're so bright, but those are going to give you a really good cast for sure. So, okay. Now the starter budget would be somebody who's ready to start making some investments. Now I want to make this point, as I made earlier. If you want to go straight into what Christian and I have, which is a more advanced budget, more expense, here's what I'll say. I will not recommend you do that until you are focused on your content. I think we talked about that before, is that you can have amazing audio, video quality, but if your content, if you don't have good content or an engaged audience, you're not ready to make investments. So, but if this is where you want to start and you want to go here, now I say starter, but I want to go back to, this may be all you ever need. This may be all you ever need. This may be the perfect setup for you based on your unique situation. And so, but we're calling it the starter budget because it's essentially where people tend to get started when they are ready to start making investments. And so a USB microphone, I'm telling you, the USB microphone market, it used to be you had to spend a lot of money to get a decent USB mic. There are new mics coming out all the time. You can get a great microphone for as little as $65. I mean, I'm telling you, but you can also spend anywhere upwards of $200. I will say this, I do not think you should spend more than $200 on a USB microphone because there are amazing USB microphones for less than $200.
Yeah.
So if somebody's trying to sell you a $300 USB microphone, then you need to save some money, use that somewhere else, and go use. I see this all the time. Like, that's why I maxed it out. You can spend more than this, but don't. That's all I'm gonna say.
And people really, I mean, for a budget for live streaming, like, you should set a budget. Like, what can you afford?
Yes.
And then be smart. Like, be strategic about what you buy. So, for example, and I love the point you brought up, by the way, Mel, about the fact that you could have the best picture quality, but if people are just listening to the audio, you're the one who took on the expense. They didn't take on the expense. So start with what you have and just be strategic about what you want to get. Like, so for example, if you're just getting started, we've already mentioned content is the most important part. So you got to have a really good show and you need to make sure it's going to work. So if you've never done live streaming before, for example, you don't need to go make thousands of dollars of an investment. You need to start with what you have and get your show, get some footing, get your show off the ground and get your audience. And then as you get your audience, the first investment that I would make would be my audio. Like, get that $70 microphone, for example, that Samson Q2U, great mic. There's also an Audio Technica version. I think it's the ATR 2100. It's practically the same mic. It's $100 versus $70. So super, super, super important focus on the audio. I'm gonna let you keep taking things, keep things going, Mel.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. Thanks for being here, Christian. I know you have a hard stop at 11, so
got a couple more minutes. So I'm
okay, cool, fantastic, awesome. So the webcams, kind of the same thing as the microphones. You can get decent webcams. You can find webcams for like 30 or 40 bucks, but it's probably not worth your investment, to be honest with you. I would say the range here is about $90 to $200. Again, kind of the same concept. There's actually webcams out there that are like $300, $400. Don't buy those. You don't need to buy those because they're not going to be worth that type of money. Save some of that money and use something that's going to be just good enough for you. So do your research, look at these cameras online. Lighting is important, as Christian pointed out, when it comes to using webcams, which brings us to our lighting. So you are going to want to make sure, if you are making these investments, you start with something simple. Now, I will say this, there are other lights that you can choose from. But ring light is a great place to get started. As I mentioned earlier, you do not want to go buy one of those $25 ring lights. I mean, you can buy ring lights at like Staples now, like Walmart, and they are like this big. Do not buy one of those, right? I'd rather you just use a lamp on your desk. The wider this is where size matters when it comes to these ring lights. You need to go with that 18-inch ring light. Do not go any smaller than that. And so the thing to keep in mind with these too is that you are going to need a little additional space when it comes to using these ring lights. So I'm using a ring light up here. I know Christian has a ring light going on as well. Yep. There are some simple lighting kits that you can also buy that are in this budget. So I say ring light, but you can also get 2 ring lights, or you could actually get 2 soft boxes. Cowboy Lighting, I think, has these kits, and they go upwards to about $150. I do think that it's key, if you have the room for it and the size and you want it, you can actually use 2 ring lights and you get that flanking light, which is actually going to give you a more balanced light and reduce some hot spots too. So, and then for this, the last thing I wanted to say was stability. You need to think about stability. And so you may need to invest in a tripod. If you're using a webcam and you're using a little laptop, you're going to need to get that webcam up high. So you may need to invest in a tripod for your webcam as well. And then of course, if you're using, this is actually not going to, do not spend $150 on a webcam tripod, but you're going to see here, I'm pointing this out because if you're thinking about upgrading to a mirrorless camera later, don't buy a $20 tripod for that really expensive camera. Actually get a good, go ahead and buy the nicer tripods, but knowing that you're going to be using it later for a nicer camera for sure. So wanted to point that out too, right there.
And by the way, I want to add one thing, and then I'm going to let you just take things over for the whole rest of the show. So I think the first thing is, in terms of a tripod, the reason you want to make sure you get a good quality tripod is, you're putting $1,000 camera, for example, or even a $500 or $200 camera on that tripod. Don't buy an inexpensive tripod. Don't buy one that is not designed to support that type of camera you're putting on it, because you put it down and here's what's going to happen. If you're shooting outside, for example, or you're in a heavy traffic area, that tripod gets knocked over, your camera is like gone. So, make sure, again, saying this earlier, make sure you're making the right investments in things. So for example, a tripod, it's going to be something you also can repurpose for things. How many you take family photos, for example, around the holidays? You now have a tripod that doubles as live streaming equipment, but also you can use it later on. And then the other thing I think I also want to just mention real quick is in terms of, let me actually find this question real quick.
While you're doing that, don't buy one of these, is basically what Christian's saying. These things, they look cool. Oh, they're only $7. They're tiny. They fold up. These don't work. Even your phone's going to tip over with this thing. This is only good for a lightweight webcam that's balanced, but don't buy one of these things. That's basically what Christian's telling us for sure. So, yeah.
Awesome. So I want to let you guys, I'm going to let you continue, and then I'll pop back in if I get some time, but this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for letting me join, guys.
Hey, you bet. Thanks for being here, Christian. It was a lot of help having you here. So
anytime.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Cool. Bye. Okay. So we're moving forward. We're going to keep going here, and I've got a couple more budgets here that we're going to be talking about, but I just had something here. Where'd it go? There it is. So Dimebag Darren says, I use the iClip for many things. Yeah, so lots of stuff that we can use for these things. Some of you are joining us just now, just so you know what we're doing is we're actually talking about budgets. We talked about lots of gear, lots of tech. Christian talked about his setup. I talked about my setup. And right now we're just essentially, I'm doing a recap, giving you some sample budgets. And this is so you can do some planning, right? And so here's this one right here. Let's move on to the next level budget. Now, next level is going to be more about closer to what I'm using my setup as well as what Christian's setup is. A lot of times we see these setups, Kevin Colby probably fits into this setup as well. So a lot of our StreamYard people, I think Julie's setup probably fits into this as well. Now remember, The last budget I just gave you is also a mobile friendly type of setup. So those webcams, the USB microphones, they're simple, plug and play, you're ready to go. So if you're tearing down and setting up all the time, so for example, if you're an artist and you have, your computer, you have to move it into your studio to do your live streams, or if you're in the kitchen, or if you're in fitness and you're moving your computer, you're moving your laptop to be able to do these streams, you're moving equipment around all the time. This is probably not the setup for you, to be honest with you, unless you're able to set up a permanent studio. And I personally have, my stuff is set up in a more permanent manner. So that last slide that I showed, which was the starter budget, may be all you ever need. But if you do want to take it to the next level, here are some budgets for you to be thinking about. And so I do think that, we had a really great, this is really, really key. You have a budget that you start with, and your budget can grow, but it should grow with your channel. You do not need to wait to start streaming. You don't wait on this level to start streaming. Start using what you have now, get going, grow your channel, keep going, and then make slow investments one thing at a time. Introduce one thing at a time, okay? Really key component there for sure. So, all right, next level. You can use an XLR microphone. An XLR microphone is what Christian was using, right? So he was using the Shure XLR microphone, but it is going to require some accessories. You're going to need an audio interface. You're going to need an XLR cable. You're probably going to want to use some sort of mounting device like a boom arm or anything like that as well. And so there are some accessories you're going to need to think about. So while you see maybe there's an XLR microphone, like the one I have up here that I'm not using right now is only $100, you still need a $20 cable. You still need an audio interface as well. So you're pretty much looking at anywhere from $225 to $1,000. Now, you can also spend more than $1,000. You totally can. But again, this is essentially that next level. So, with the microphone that Christian's using and his audio interface that he's using, he's actually at that $1,000 point. So that's something to keep in mind. You can totally spend a lot of money, but you don't have to. When it comes to the cameras, the DSLR cameras or the mirrorless cameras, so Andrew, just so you know, what you're seeing right now, for me, is a Sony a6100 camera with the Sigma lens. That is the Sigma 16mm 1.4 lens that gives me the blurred background, and I'm using a cam link to hook that up. So these DSLR mirrorless cameras, like you see here, these are going to require additional investments outside of the camera. So that's why it says plus accessories. I just mentioned I have a cable. We didn't talk about dummy batteries, but you definitely want to invest in a dummy battery. And what that is it's going to be a fake battery. It's not a real battery. Goes into the camera, and then you plug a power cable into it, and you plug it into the wall. And now you're fully powered versus charging your camera and then it running out of battery while you're streaming. So that's another additional piece that you have to buy. So again, lots of different stuff, right? Lots of different things you got to consider. So great question though. Let me get back to this view so you guys can see it. And so the other thing is the tripod. Christian made a really great point. And I mentioned this too, is that you don't want to spend $550 or even upwards to $2,500 on this particular setup and then put it on a cheapy $17 tripod. So you are going to want to make sure you have a decent tripod. Now I will tell you that you can get some pretty good tripods for as little as $30. You just want to make sure that where you have it is going to be stable. But I would recommend you look into the little bit more. Manfrotto is a really great brand that mine's on a Manfrotto tripod. And you can get any of these tripods at camera stores or even like your local Best Buy or even Walmart, to be honest with you. So you can find tripods in most places. You just want to make sure it's stable and it is rated for the weight of your camera. And so I also recommend you get one that's easy to adjust because you're going to find that you may need to be moving your stuff around, raising it, lowering it. So make sure it's easily adjustable as well. Now, lighting, when it comes to this next level, I mentioned to you that I have a ring light. We didn't talk about the lights in behind me, but I also have a light up above me. That's called a hair light, and that's going to create dimension. You're going to find that as you spend more money, you may need to invest in some additional lights. I mentioned earlier having 2 lights, flanking lights, also a light above you. Maybe you need a backlight as well. So lighting is important. We've got another great video from D. Nimmin he did on our YouTube channel. Go check that out. He talks and breaks down the concepts of lights. It is such a good video. The only thing I'll say about that video is that a lot of the lights that D is using are actually really expensive. They are really good high grade lights. You don't have to spend that much money on some of those accessory lights that D had in his video. It just happens to be what he uses. He is a professional. He does this for a living, but you can look at a budget of around $160 to $400 like everything else, you can spend much more than $400 on your lights, but kind of fitting into the same theme of our budget here. I just wanted to kind of give you that range, right? So the other thing is lighting accessories. And we didn't talk about lighting accessories, but if you look at my setup, I have some accessories, right? And so accessories might be LED lights, right, that are in the background. Now, Dee talks about these types of lights. You can get like these RGB lights that are like $150. This is a $20 under cabinet light that changes colors. That's what that is. I got it at the home improvement store. It changes colors. You can get RGB, LED light strips. These inside here are little spotlight lamps that cost $12. And I put a color changing LED bulb in there, and I use my app to change the colors. Right? So you can get pretty scrappy, but as I would say, scrappy doesn't have to be crappy. So you definitely want to think about that. If you're wanting to create some accessories or a different look, then yes, you can make some investments in some other lights too. I also recommend the $20 lava lamp. That's pretty popular. In fact, people love my lava lamp. So let's keep moving. So here we go. Oh, I will say somebody is almost there. We're going to do a giveaway, by the way. I'll give you the hashtag in a moment, but we are going to do a giveaway. So as we're wrapping up here, stick around because we're going to have a fun giveaway. I've got something fun to give you guys for being here today because you guys have been some troopers. Now, the next thing, those lighting accessories, as I mentioned, you can get really scrappy, find some really fun stuff, but you can also go with some more expensive higher end things. I don't recommend those higher end lights unless you just simply do have a higher budget for sure. So, Zage. So we talked about cameras earlier, just real quick. It's a special lens. It's actually a lens that blurs my background. That's why you're seeing that for sure. So, okay. Now the other thing that we talked about briefly, but we didn't dive deep on is hardware. So there's other stuff you can introduce. You definitely do not want to start here. You 100% do not want to start here. This is when you're like wanting to create some really advanced style, shows, introducing different cameras, other audio like music and just all kinds of other things. There's other hardware that you can look at too. These are way next level. Like these are pro level. Quite frankly, most streamers probably won't ever even need this stuff. And that may be you. But if you are one of those people that wants to take these to the next level, you can get audio mixers. There's a Stream Deck that will work, does not work right now with StreamYard, but it does work with other apps that work with StreamYard. For example, I'm using OBS, the virtual camera function in OBS. I could actually use Stream Deck to do all those scene switchings with that, but it does not work directly with StreamYard as of right now. Dan and Gage have said repeatedly on their town halls that it is definitely in their roadmap. They would love to figure out a way to make that work. So could be coming. Camera switchers, like we talked about earlier, those will just click with a quick click of the button. You can switch your camera angles and camera views. So if you're looking at using a top-down camera as well as a different angle, you might want to look at that as well. And then just additional cameras. We didn't really talk about that, but additional cameras, you're going to look at another investment there if you do want to have additional cameras. But as I mentioned earlier, one of the other things that you want to be thinking about is as you're buying these, this is OBS, by the way, so that you can see it. So I'm using this. When you have other cameras, you can switch very easily by just using OBS. You may not need the hardware. But what I wanted to point out again was that essentially, when you have a webcam and you're ready to upgrade, don't get rid of your webcam because it might become your new behind the scenes camera, right? So don't get rid of the stuff you have. Hang on to it, keep it, especially those cameras, because you may find a use for it later. So that's something, again, build on what you have, build as you go. Don't, get crazy and start out everything right away. So, okay, so let's see here. What else was I going to tell you guys? We talked about this very briefly, but your computer is also really important. You need to make sure that you have a computer that's powerful enough as you are upgrading these things. And that is something I find that somebody earlier made this comment. She said, I'm just using webcams right now. My next purchase is a better computer. And that is a really smart thing to think about because that better computer is going to support her in a lot of ways. And then eventually she may look at upgrading her cameras. So you have to look at all this stuff as a journey, right? You got to take it as a process. So basically the whole point of this was people wanted to know what's a good budget. Well, we can't define that. You have to define that. But what Christian and I wanted to do today when it came to answering this question is that we wanted to make sure that you knew you have options. You do not have to say, oh, well, I want that same look that Mel has or that Christian has, so I better go spend $1,500 on my audio and my video. No. No, especially if you haven't started streaming yet, or if you're only beginning streaming, focus on what you're doing right now. Focus on your audience right now. I will tell you, I used to stream with nothing, like the smallest simple setup. And I've grown as I've grown. I've invested in more things and introduced that stuff. And it's honestly been kind of fun for my audience to see me evolve as a streamer, to see my quality upgrade. It's been kind of fun to have them on that journey with me. So don't wait, focus on your content, and then start looking at adding these additional, upgrades as you go. And you may find that you don't need to go to a certain level. You may find that your money is better spent somewhere else in your business or in your organization or in your office or house or whatever it might be. So we wanted to make sure you knew you had options, because we keep seeing people make the mistake time and time again. They go spend thousands of dollars and then the equipment sits there. They bought that camera and it's still sitting in the box because they haven't had the time to focus on unpacking it and figuring it out. But they're not streaming because they're waiting. That thing's in the box, or they have the equipment and it's set up and we watch their streams and we're like, why do they have all this stuff? They don't need it. They're not even using those features. And so we wanted to make sure that you all knew you had options, and that just because even if you're in that lower budget segment, that doesn't mean that you're not going to create amazing streams, because your content is the most important part when it comes to creating amazing streams. So focus on your content. All this other stuff, it's just icing on the cake, right? Okay, icing on the cake. Do you guys want to do a giveaway? Let's do a giveaway. Let's do a giveaway. I'm going to check on your comments. I want you to do a giveaway, or I want to do a giveaway. So basically, hashtag love StreamYard. Put it in there right now. I'm going to get this bad boy set up. This is my first time. Did you guys know that the giveaway tool is now available for everybody? Yeah, I was shocked. Dan and Gage have been using this thing for quite some time. And the best thing about it is if you go to StreamYard.com, if you're a StreamYard user, you get to use this. You go to StreamYard.com and you go to giveaway, and you're going to select the broadcast, and then you're going to select whatever the prompt was. And today it's Love StreamYard. So put in Love StreamYard, hashtag Love StreamYard. Okay. And I'm going to draw a name, and this thing's going to randomly draw somebody. And I'll show that to you in just a moment. But before I do that, while you guys are putting those comments in, I also want to make sure you guys know, and I invite you to our Facebook community. So we have a Facebook group. This is where you can ask the questions. We're going to be doing this Ask StreamYard show. In fact, we have next week, our StreamYard show is at 11 o'clock Eastern time, same time, same place, right? Wednesday at 11 o'clock Eastern. Kevin's going to be doing that show. But we're going to be doing these Ask StreamYards hopefully weekly. And we want to take your questions that you post inside of our Facebook community using that hashtag Ask StreamYard. Post your question and we may feature you and we answer your question right here on this show. And we would love to do that. And so I wanted to make sure that you knew that. And I also wanted to make sure that I invited you to our Facebook community so that you could do that right there. And I will, while you guys are finishing typing in those hashtags so we can get your giveaway going, I'm going to just type in the comments here real quick, our link to our Facebook community. So even if you're on YouTube and you don't use Facebook all the time, let me just invite you over to hang out with us over there, because it's an awesome community. We support people in there, but also I love getting inspired. I love seeing people's ideas and the questions that they ask, and it's a ton of fun. So yes, okay, we are going to do a giveaway. It looks like we've got all kinds of people hanging out with us. So yeah, we're going to do it. Okay, so let me pull it up. Oh, sweet. I've got a little support backstage. So we're ready to go. Let's do it. Oh, and again, you guys, this giveaway tool is for you guys to use. If you're a StreamYard user, if you go to StreamYard.com/giveaway, you will see it. There's also a tutorial on there. Woohoo! Teresa, you are the winner. So Teresa is going to get it's Puddles. Puddles is the name of our little mascot, right? The cute little duck, right? So you're going to get this cute little mascot thing. We hope that you will feature it. I would love to see you take a picture with Puddles when you receive it, and we will make sure that we would love to feature you in our social media too, for sure. So you are going to need to email us at support. So support@StreamYard.com, I believe, is where we need you to send that email so that we can get your information and you can get your Puddles, right? So there you go. Again, I want to just also remind you guys, I want to make sure that you guys are subscribed to us. We have all kinds of really cool videos and tutorials planned for you, but we also have a lot of tutorials. I mentioned a lot of those earlier. So we had the lighting tutorial, we had the mobile phone tutorial, and others. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Check those playlists out. You will learn a lot from us, but also make sure you join our StreamYard community so that we can get your answers or your questions answered. And don't forget to join us next week again, right? Next Wednesday at 11 o'clock Eastern time. So you guys, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys. Again, my name is Melanie Dyann Howe. Pretty sure you're going to be seeing a little bit more of me. I'm really excited to be a StreamYard partner. I'm just such an advocate. I love live video, and StreamYard for me was a game changer. It really just made marketing for myself and for everybody else so much more fun again. And I got to say, I'm just really, really, really grateful to be here with you guys. So thanks for hanging out with me today. Sorry about a few of those rabbit holes. Hopefully we had gave you guys some good knowledge and some good ideas for budget so that you could be planning how you're going to be approaching your live videos and, of course, all the gear and equipment. So until next time, my friends, we'll see you soon. Don't forget to subscribe. See ya.